welcome to another edition of Wealthy and Wise. I'm your host, Cort Christie from NCH. I am the CEO and founder. And today we've got a great episode because we're going to be talking about what's happening next year. Yes, we brought out our crystal ball and we brought out the one and only David Vanlandingham, the expert in trends and what's happening and what's coming down the line in business and startups in business and things that we should be thinking about, planning for, and getting ahead of the curve on. So, David, hey, thanks for being on the program today.
Yeah, I love it. This is exciting. I don't think people understand that we actually do have a crystal ball. And what's nice about this is there's people coming to us, Court, forming these entities 6 months to a year before they start launching these businesses, which are falling in these trends at some places. And we're creating their business plans and their pitch decks. So we kind of get a peek into what's coming in the future. So it is kind of a crystal ball.
Yeah, we really do, and it's kind of fun. We literally can pull data from our client database, and I can see the descriptions, the names, and the industry types of every business performing. And so you really kind of are like, wow, last year everybody was doing this, and this year everybody's doing something different. And certainly at this time of the year, it's going to carry right into 2025. And I know you've been dissecting that and looking at what's happening out there. So, tell us, what's going on with the trends and what should people be thinking about that are, planning to become an entrepreneur or already are, and they just need to be thinking ahead so they don't get surprised and get out competed.
Well, I think we're going to save something that's really important for the last because I think it's important to address with some new information that we just came out with today. But I think really what it comes to when you look at these trends, are they trends or have they been around for a while, maybe just in a different name? And we're going to talk specifically about AI. And that is just, it just kind of blew up in the marketplace. But if you really know the history of this goes back, well, it kind of goes back to 1936. There was a gentleman by the name of Alan Turing who started creating models of really things to imitate and mimic human behavior in making decisions, process decisions. And then about 20 years later, it jumped into 1956, where four groups of scientists went to a Dartmouth symposium and conference, and they were simulating intelligence and logic. So now you can see the progression a little bit later. 70s and 80s were kind of bland. I don't know what it was about the 70s and 80s, but we certainly didn't push it down the field very far. But in the 90s, there was a form of predictive text. You remember text messaging, and it would pop up with words like, "It's not what I said. That's not what I meant." But it would sure fill in those words for you. And then it kind of grew from there into where different applications, and if you remember 1996 is when Gary Kasparov played Deep Blue, the computer chess game, the first time, and Kasparov beat it quite handily. And then in 1997, after relearning the process, and this was an IBM Think computer, came back and actually won and beat the unbeatable. So we've seen these changes. They were just kind of by different names. And of course now, as soon as AI hit about, I guess really 2 years ago, mainstream, people started thinking about, oh my God, this is going to be Terminator all over again, right? And it's just amazing to see the advances in this. But I think what a lot of people are really concerned about is that AI is going to take over their job. And in some cases, maybe, you walk into McDonald's or Burger King, they've got kiosks now that you just order from. Is that really AI? It's still human intelligence entering that order. So I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting, all the applications, everyone's talking about AI right now, but are they practical? Are they applicable? Can you use them in your business? And you think about where, all the narrative is at. Well, the narrative's at the tool. It's like, hey, look at what it can do for you. You might have a robot that's able to talk to you in 5 years in your house and you carry on a conversation. Well, that's all fine and good, but how does that help me as a business owner? And I'm not manufacturing cars. They don't need robots, but there's just so many areas where we're utilizing it. Certainly, I was in a meeting today with one of our heads of marketing, and she was talking about our content writers. And I said, "What content writers? That's gone. That's no longer a thing. You have content editors now. People that might take an email that you say, hey, build me an email to tell individuals about 2025 trends or something, just like we're doing right now, and you're going to get something back." And you're going to edit it to make sure it's applicable to the audience. Maybe the words don't make sense, or just you have to spend a little time cleaning it up, but you took all the creative time out of it, that's the painful part. We've all written extensive emails, marketing emails, and that's real brain work. And now all of a
Yes,
sudden
it
you don't
is.
have to do it anymore. And the stuff that comes out is actually shocking. I am so impressed. I'll ask somebody that sends me something to take a look at and review. I'm like, wow, this is like heavy, rich content and really creatively written. And then I'm like, you used AI, didn't you? And they're like,
You
yeah,
caught me, Cort. You caught me. I'll stop doing that. But let me tell you what it ramps up, though. It makes companies more efficient. And here's one perfect reason. You and I have been on Zoom calls for years together, and I always see you right there in front of your laptop taking notes, right?
yeah.
And is that necessary anymore, right? They summarize our conversations. We can record. So all that stuff is being done so we can be more efficient. So could it cost jobs at some point? Yeah, maybe. But I think it gives you time back. It gives you time to expend in areas that you want to expend in versus sitting there and typing notes. So I think there's so many different tools out there. Chat GP is been one that's been big
Fun.
for years,
Yep.
and Jasper, for project management. So I think there's things out there that are just going to make companies more efficient and more profitable.
But I think as the listeners, oftentimes you'll hear people say, oh, well, it's just going to get rid of people, or jobs are going to be lost. No, jobs are going to change, and they're not going to be lost. The washing machine didn't get rid of people having to wash clothes, but it certainly saved them a lot of time. And they got to do other things, and then they just put their time into doing something else, or the internet and all it's done to, minimize, the time that we have to spend shopping, like with Amazon. You think of the god number of packages that are being delivered right now, and yet what are we sitting around watching more TV, or do we just apply our time into something else? And so that's the shift that's going on. But AI is just absolutely phenomenal, what it's doing and how transformative it's going to be. The next couple of years are going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, technology is definitely at the forefront. I'm here in Florida, and I was blown away the other day driving through a neighborhood. I saw a robot, looks like a Roomba, mowing the yard, mowing the yard. And I
Incredible.
looked it up. It's made by Husqvarna, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is crazy.
I
It
mean, I
develops these
know
patterns.
I have a neighbor that has one too, right? It's just like it's out there. Or the little, the delivery pods that are running around the streets of certain cities where they're trying these out right now, and comes to your door and or your office and delivers your food, and no more people are doing it. Well, let's talk further about other trends. So AI is going to be huge. What else you've seen out there for 2025 that people need to pay attention to?
Well, I think you're going to see a continuation of the hybrid work, home work from home, work from the WeWork type of facilities where you can go and have an office when you need an office, or a conference room when you need a conference, or work from home. And more and more, and I'm kind of the real estate guy as well, so I'm always looking, and I'm seeing more and more homes being identified by with home office, 4 bedroom, 3 bath with home office, right? So I think that's really something that's becoming kind of a sizzle feature in properties now. And if somebody's in that capacity where they're going to be working from home, it's kind of nice to have that stuff.
You bet. And it'll be interesting to see, from like the government sector. This is where the big change is going to be. Coincidentally, I just had the governor of Nevada in our offices today, and he made a big push. I think it was almost a year ago, to get everybody at the state of Nevada back in the offices. And oh, did he get pushed back? And now we're hearing it at the federal level, right? You've got Elon and Vivek out there with Donald Trump saying, yeah, guess what, people, you're going to come back to work. Now will it be a hybrid model or not? I don't know, but it's going to be disruptive for sure. And then people are going to be looking at these options like, okay, if I don't want to go back to my federal building of whatever city that I worked in, where can I find the job that will give me this hybrid position? And you think about what happened during the pandemic to shift this thing and kind of rearrange how we looked at workplace environments and the expectation of clocking in at 8 and being out at 5 and being there 5 days a week.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And to somebody that's looking at a job like that as well, they got to look at the savings by staying at home, right? They're not dry cleaning, suits and dresses and things like that. They're not having to do parking. Parking in New York, forget about it. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Transportation, cabs. I mean, so in some cases, working from home could be a mental benefit, if you will, but also a financial benefit. So I think companies that are embracing and adopting that, I think that's a real good incentive. It's like, well, do you offer a 401k? Yes. Do you allow work from home? I mean, it's right up there now, and some people are just refusing to go back. So yeah, it's going to get interesting on a federal level come January 20th.
It's going to get very interesting. 2025 is going to be a fun year. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, strap in,
Yeah.
strap in for
Well,
sure.
what else should we be thinking about as business owners, entrepreneurs, real estate investors for 2025?
Well, I think it all comes down to money, availability of money. What does money cost you, right? So we know that there's just a ton of real estate investors out there that have gotten good interest rates over time. And then, part of that business model of being a real estate investor is to allow your property to appreciate and then what? Refinance it, strip cash out, tax free, and go invest in more properties. So I think we're going to see rates come down. I hear people quite often, some of these forums that I visit for real estate investors, and they're like, oh, when's it going to get to 3%? It should have never been there in the first place. Should not have been sub 3%. We can make that argument all day long. But I definitely think we're seeing it go the right direction, and it's coming down slowly. And I think over time that's going to bode well for your real estate investors, and it's going to be passed right down to on rental properties, the tenants, right? So the lower my payment is, I mean, I've got other things that I got to consider, like insurance costs are constantly going up, property taxes constantly going up, along with that home value. So, to become more affordable, if I get the right type of loan in place with a lower interest rate, that may be the difference between, a couple $100 a month in cash flow to where somebody can afford to live there.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a huge difference. And I think, as these markets shift around, that there's going to be spending either contracting or people, going at it and figuring out how they're going to expand their businesses because money's cheap. But the other big thing right now is you got Bitcoin, crossing over the $100,000 mark, and you've got a new administration that's supposedly embracing crypto, stable coins, alt projects that are out there. What are you seeing in that, and how's that going to be impacting business and commerce?
Yeah, I mean, so there's been a slow trickle of regulations around this that are some are coming into play in 2025, some are going to be in 2026. So it'll be interesting to see what these guys will come in and change. We've been threatened with Brexit and things like that over the the last year or two, and so it's about stabilizing the dollar. It's about you have to have some sort of checks and balances on crypto. And I think you got some of the right guys in the right place to do it. And it's going to be very interesting to see where this goes. I mean, you've already got NFL players that are taking their salaries in crypto and doing quite well, making more money probably than their contracts. So I think it really just opens up the doors to a lot of different investors. Where there's investment, there's risk. We know that. But with regulations, we can control some of that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you know what the guide rails are, right? If it's not just the Wild West, the SEC has cracked down on crypto companies and now made it easy for them. But I guess the current SEC head is on his way out, and they're going to certainly make it more approachable. So it'll be interesting from a business perspective, like how you use it. For instance, once this evolves, um, the extortion money that we pay Visa, MasterCard, American Express right now, 2.5%, 3%, should go away. A transaction should cost nothing to move money from a merchant to somebody's credit card to your bank, however you're doing it. And the banks are getting paid a fortune, Visa, MasterCard's getting paid a fortune, and it's a tax. It's a tax on every business. It's a tax on every consumer because the prices go up because of that fee. And how many times have you walked into an establishment where they say, "Hey, we charge a 3% fee if you use a credit card"? It's like, well, that's ridiculous. Credit cards are easy, they're convenient, but the people that have set that system up have been getting overpaid for a very long time. And this is where blockchain can help, and there's going to be a lot of options. So watch that happening. The banks are going to push back; they're not going to be happy, but it's got to change. It's got to
Yeah, I
change.
agree. And the weird thing is, you go to some places and they won't take cash.
Yeah,
And I'm like, what country are we in? But they don't take cash. It's crazy. We have a bank. I won't name it here, but they won't take cash as a deposit. If I walk in there to deposit money, they won't take cash. And I'm like,
yeah.
what am I supposed to do with it? Where's it go? Well, where'd you get it from? I mean, that's their
Right.
question now. So
Yeah.
it's almost, you're treated like a criminal in some cases. But yeah, we've seen quite a few, especially here in Florida, with credit cards where everybody is starting to charge processing fees, and it does hurt the consumer. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it wasn't, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago that was unauthorized with your agreements to, process credit cards that you couldn't charge an extra fee. And then
Right.
that became a federal lawsuit. That disappeared because they couldn't tell a business owner that, they couldn't charge a fee when cash was paying them more than the credit card where they were losing that money. So that went away. But that was a leverage that Visa MasterCard had. But there's always litigation going on out there in the world, and are there other things from a federal standpoint or that we need to be thinking about as far as compliance and things as business owners that we need awareness on?
Yeah, so we're all going to remember Christmas Eve, which is today, right? And we've been battling with this Corporate Transparency Act now for quite some time, and the BOI. And you and I actually did a very long segment on that probably over a year ago. We
Yeah.
talked about
Yes.
is this something we need to rush out and get done? Is it going to get overturned? And I said, let's pause and let's hold off a little bit. But this did get shut down on December 3rd, I believe it was. A court in Texas did a stay, an injunction on it, and said this is unconstitutional. And immediately by December 5th, the DOJ had already filed an appeal. Well, today, December 23rd, that stay was lifted. And so now the BOI report is in play. And you've got that deadline of January 1 of 25. This stuff has to be turned in for those entities that were formed prior to 2024. So there's a lot of people scrambling right now, including myself. Remember, I said I wasn't filing it until I
Yeah.
knew I had to. Well, guess what? I'll be
Uh,
filing it.
and I'm thinking about a client of ours that it was an NCH client, and they had about 10 entities, um, different LLCs for different businesses or real estate. I can't remember what they were doing, but they actually asked us to do their beneficial ownership interest form documentation for them. And so we did it. We took the order to get it done for them. And this individual called back an hour later and said, wait, wait, wait. I don't have to do this because of this lawsuit. And we're like, well, it's probably going to be overturned. That's always been my opinion on it because I know the history behind this. It's been 20 years in the making,
That's right.
and it wasn't going anywhere. I mean, the federal government wants to know everything, and it's very rare that you are that the privacy and protections of consumers are going to get in the way of what the government wants. So in this case, this person actually did a refund that same day. And I'm thinking about that individual right now, thinking, well, you should have done it because right now there's going to be a backlog. I mean, we're a week away from the end of the year and those systems crash with the government. The fines occur with, what is it, $500 a day? And
Yeah.
it's expensive, very,
Yeah.
very expensive.
Well,
And here,
it's $500 a day adjusted for inflation. It's 591 right now,
mm,
and that's going to sting. But I mean, here's the thing. There's 33 million small businesses that they're saying is going to be affected by this. Um, who on the government side is going to vet these and look at them? And I mean, it's crazy. It really is. And I was a little surprised that I figured it was going to be a battle and it would be overturned at some point. I didn't think it'd be so quick.
yeah, I didn't either. And I also thought, David, that they would give us a little more time because of the lawsuit, right? Because so many people being so close to the deadline, like you and the client I referenced, just decided to hit pause. Well, now you got to get it done. And so I thought, well, maybe because it was held off or sort of held off for a couple of weeks, that they'd add a couple or maybe 30 days. So maybe it was going to be February 1st. Nope. It's still December 31st. You've got to get this form in. And this is a document that you've got to submit to the Department of Treasury, their financial crimes division, and you have to tell them who owns more than 25% of your business entity for every entity that you own. But more importantly, every entity has to be registered, no matter how old the entity is, every LLC and corporation. And even if you dissolved the business entity that was formed after the year 2020, I believe is the date that you no longer use it, you never had wanted to take advantage of it, you've got to go back and do that. And that's one of the areas that most people don't even know about. And I've had to think about entities or LLCs that I've dissolved and I haven't used anymore in the last few years for different ideas and make sure those are registered because there'll be a fine with that. Now, I wonder when you combine, the Department of the Treasury with the enforcement powers of the IRS, AI and robotics, if, maybe next year we'll have a robot coming to knock on our door with an IRS badge telling us that we missed our BOI and we now owe, you know, $30,000.
Yeah, that's now we're getting back into the Terminator, right? You've been terminated for
Yeah.
taxes. Yeah, I mean, listen, again, there were points in there that okay, it was a decent argument on some sides of it, and yes, there's nefarious actors out there, but I mean, you're really crossing the line, with a lot of people out there, these mom and pop businesses. It just scares the bejesus out of them. I mean, I'm on a couple forums with some of our different affiliates that we work with, and some people are just terrified about it. They're freaking out over it. And, as much as you try to calm them down, it doesn't work because this is your driver's license or your passport. You're taking a picture of it and sending it to the government.
Yeah.
And, even good people that have nothing to worry about, it's just uncomfortable.
Well, and I think with the, government overreach and what they're able to do, what if you forget to do it? What if you don't do it because you just don't think it's right, or you can't even figure out the portal that they set up or load your photo? I mean, we've had a lot of problems with that, getting your photo in there because they want a photo ID of each person that's responsible for that entity and everyone that owns more than 25%. So now you have a problem. There's no one to call, no one to help you, and you're on your own. And a year later, you go to do something like your bank account's locked out. Is that real? Could it happen? Absolutely, it could happen.
Sure.
And you find out, well, the reason your bank account's locked is because you didn't do your beneficial ownership information reporting with the Department of Treasury. It's like it's crazy, but that's the world we live in right now. Well, some of these trends are positive, David, and some of these trends for 2025 may not be. In that case, not
Well,
to
it,
big
it, it
picture.
ain't it ain't over till the fat lady sings. Let's just put it that way. Let's see what happens after January 20th. Let's see, if this is still going to be viewed as constitutional. It could get pushed over to the Supreme Court. There's a lot of things that can happen. It's not over yet, but yes, you must comply now. You must comply, and then at some point, it may be null and void. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, my money's on the government. Always wins.
I'm
That's
not
my
arguing with that.
experience. Well, this is great. Thanks for giving us some perspective of some of the trends in business, things that we all need to be thinking about as business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, individuals just thinking about starting something in 2025, you need awareness. And like you said, we get to see it all. We get to see the trends. We're in the driver's seat of watching, what are the new cars and what's everybody into? Well, we get to see what kind of businesses people are starting day in and day out. So it's certainly cool. And if I was an entrepreneur, this is information I'd want to know about. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Great program today, and all my best to you. And we'll be hopefully doing another program in the new year very shortly here.
All right. Thank you very much, Cort.
Absolutely. And for all of you tuning into our program today, thank you for watching another edition of Wealthy and Wise. And I'm your host, Cort Christie, CEO and founder of NCH, where if you need to get a business entity started in any state or want to take advantage of some of the preferred states like Nevada and Wyoming that we specialize in, please reach out to us. You get to talk to great people like David and some of the fantastic team that we have here at NCH. And we're excited to be able to look into next year and help you support what you need for your business and your future endeavors. Please also like and subscribe. We're here to spread the message and spread the word. And you also find a link to reach out to us, and we'll have one of our advisors talk to you about what your needs might be. It's a free consultation that we offer everyone that wants to know more about protecting their assets and start new businesses. So take care, and thanks for tuning in to another episode.